Don Day, God bless you, sir. You made it.
Happy to be here. I went to 3 different basements before I figured it out.
My God. Well, you found the right basement eventually, so thank God for that.
Yeah.
Listen, man, you are the founder of Boise Dev.
Yep, co-founder.
Yeah,
My wife's the other founder.
Shout out Don Day's wife.
Yep,
great job, guys.
Kara Jackson. Yep.
You are literally one of the few media sources in the entire state of Idaho that doesn't talk trash about me. So thank you for that. Appreciate you.
Try not to talk trash, but anyway.
And you're also somebody who obviously is navigating a world of not in a critical standpoint, but legacy media where it's like, no, we're going to write articles. They're actually going to be valuable. And oh my gosh, if they're valuable and not ridiculous, people will read them. Like, how have you guys been able to do that where the rest of the media apparatus is just falling into chaos?
I think the big thing for us is that we're, we say we're the only locally owned news outlet in the area. You'd have to decide if you're news or not, I guess, to decide if I can still say that.
I don't think.
But there's definitely that's changing. But as far as maybe sort of a kind of a traditional, reporters and editors standpoint, we're the only one that's locally owned. And what that means for us is we can make the decisions that make sense for the Treasure Valley and for Valley County. And look, there's a lot of good work that happens and a lot of good reporters that happen, and all those news outlets that you just dinged. And I think you would acknowledge that, like, hey, there's good stories out there. The challenge is a lot of them are owned by corporations. All of them are owned by corporations that aren't from here, which means they have to make decisions at scale on what they can afford, what their approach is going to be. They've got research that says this works, this doesn't. Some of them are trying to feed a paywall, and so they have economic pressures to make sure that they are doing things that are going to convert at the end of the day and drive people through the paywall. If they're sort of non-paywall, which is mostly the television stations, then they've got a different set of calculuses. They need people to watch their traditional newscasts to make money. And we don't have to do any of that. And so,
why is that? Like, how have you made this work? Because to your point, I was explaining to some older people about media in general. It's like everybody's chasing this monetization mechanism that, like, you have, again, to get somebody past the paywall, you have to say something crazy to get them even into the article, and then just enough to entice them to move through.
And maybe it's not like crazy and we're like, oh, that's crazy, but like you have to say something that is going to make them click, because we're driven by Facebook primarily. That's a pretty big engine for local media. It's less so for us, but for a lot of traditional folks. And you see it. So you see a headline that says, this happened, what next? Or a lot of questions with unanswered. And so we do some of that too, right? We try not to give away the whole story in the headline. People are like, oh, you didn't tell me the whole story in the headline. I'm like, well, right, because I'm not trying to pay Mark Zuckerberg's bills. I'm going to pay my bills. But you can also do it in a way that I think doesn't go too far. And so we're always like talking about like, how do we do this in a way that people don't feel like they're being manipulated or exploited?
Sure.
What's happening is the media is trying to manipulate or exploit Facebook and some other platforms, but primarily Facebook. And so to do that, they then have to manipulate or exploit the people on the other end of Facebook. And that's where this is all kind of falling apart. So it's easy to like ding the traditional media. They're just trying to figure out how to survive. So for us, we a couple of things happened. I come out of traditional media. I was at Channel 7 for 16 years. I've been gone for 10 years, so it's kind of in my past now.
You don't look that old. That's whatever your moisturizing routine is.
I do moisturize. Every guy should moisturize. Everybody listening to this, moisturize. It helps you.
Oh my God.
But like, I was 18, so
gotcha,
you can now do the math and all that. But I worked there for a long time, 10 years in the newsroom, 6 years-ish in digital sales as digital sales manager. And I left, and I didn't leave to start another media outlet. That wasn't my goal. It just kind of happened. But we saw that there was a gap in the market, especially in like 2016, 17, when we started. This started as a hobby. I just did this because I was like, and I think kind of like you did, like, you're like, I need something to do. And I'd started a digital marketing business and got that kind of up and rolling, but it takes time and it was kind of boring. I've been long tweeting hashtag Boise Dev things. So that's the art behind this name that we are stuck with. It wasn't a lot of design, but it started in like 2010, like, the Jackson's is getting remodeled, hashtag Boise Dev or whatever.
Yeah.
And people like that. And so middle of the last decade, we kind of saw this gap that this place is growing. It's always been growing. Right. Spoiler alert, grew faster in the 90s than it did in the last 5 years. People don't like to believe that, but it's true.
Wait, it did?
Yeah, it grew faster especially the city of Boise grew faster on a gross percentage of more people, and and the whole valley grew on a faster percentage in the 90s than they have so far this decade. But now that, the law of big numbers is we're getting bigger.
Sure.
It's always been growing. My dad grew up here. He was born in the late 50s, and there was like 30,000 people in the city of Boise, and now it's 280, and he's, still alive and kicking and vibrant. And so that's quick. That's fast. But we saw this sort of gap where there wasn't a lot of coverage about growth, and some of it's very routine types of things. And we pride ourselves on putting our audience first and doing stories that and it's easy to say, we do stories that legacy media doesn't touch. And it's not like we don't do it because I don't like it. We do it because we just try and take a tactile feel to what people want to know about their neighborhoods. And so, it might be like, hey, what's going up on that corner? I saw trucks out there. What are they doing? We do a lot of that. Or it might be this week, there's a new tower proposed for downtown Boise. We talked about it in the spring, but now we have kind of the details. And so we went into almost 2,000 words of detail about what's proposed in this tower so that people can know what's happening in their neighborhood, understand what's happening in their neighborhood, and decide if it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. Well, it's not really for us to decide, right? That's my view of what local news is not to try and shade things. We don't run opinion pieces at all. We did a little bit when we started, but I was like, this isn't going to be our bag. I don't want to be the place where you get a liberal opinion or a conservative opinion or Don's opinion. Nobody cares. There are plenty of places for that. The internet is a wide open swath of opinion. But what people need is facts about their neighborhood. And so if it's a new homeless shelter or a new hotel, or it's a change to the zoning code policy, you need to know the facts to be able to decide if you're happy or unhappy, or you don't care, or if there's apathy. And so that's been our organizing principle, and it's worked out great. And, we take that approach broadly, and we don't get part of I think the advantage for us is we don't really cover partisan politics. So Boise Dev doesn't cover abortion, unless a city takes a stand, and then we're going to tell you what the city Sure. But we don't cover abortion. We don't really cover education or education policy or all the things that animate us as a society right now. We don't really cover. The Qatari facility at Mountain Home, we did cover because at the end of the day, that's development. Yeah, right. But typically we just stay out of that. Other people can do that. So that helps us a little bit. And I don't mean that cynically, but it's really hard to cover those issues in a way that people are going to feel like you're not being steered. But with development and growth, it's a little easier because it's I can look up filings and I can look up things and I can tell you facts and figures and what's going to happen and what it's going to look like. And here's a picture. And it's certainly more than that, but that has helped us a lot. When you're a broad-based news outlet, it's really tough because you can't win. You can't win when you're covering COVID. You can't win when you're covering abortion. You can't, doesn't matter.
Well, it depends what
somebody's not going to like what you say.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When
you can't do it in a way that everybody's going to be happy with. And even we can't. We did a candidate profile. Margaret did, who I know has been on here quite a bit.
Yeah, she's the best. I call her all the time. I'm like, Margaret, I'm in a pickle. What do I do?
Right. And the profile was fantastic. I'm not going to say who it was about. But somebody's mad because we didn't go in hard enough on something that they thought should have been highlighted. And it's we mentioned it, but no, we didn't demonize the person for this thing that you don't like.
Yeah. I had first off, I so appreciate what you've said because essentially I was at a media thing. I got invited to a media thing at BSU a few months back, and I was on this panel, and I was sitting there. I'm like, wow, this is crazy that I'm on a media panel. Sure. And people are talking about giving media to people that the people want to see, right? Giving news, and that was so curious to me because it's okay, if you're feeding the algorithm what the algorithm wants, then you become something else. Correct. Right? You become whatever they want you to become, which is a real problem. But what you're saying is no, we don't go for what we just think people want. Right. We go for what actually is important and have carved out a place in the world for ourselves doing that. So even if
But turns out people like this.
Right, that's the point. If you ask them like, hey, would you like to have information about X, Y, or Z? And they're like, nah, not really. But once confronted with it, they're like, oh, what's going on with Costco?
And that's what yeah, we do a lot about Costco. But that's what drives a lot of the like, oh, let's do crime, let's do car crashes, let's do
right. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, and let's do some of the partisan things because people will click on that. It turns out they will also click on there's a new Wendy's going on my block, or there is a Costco out by the
God, that's a big on Hill Road.
We'll
potentially.
See. There's still some things to do, but like we just do those things because people they want like Buc-ee's. Man, Buc-ee's is the most read thing we've done this year. Buc-ee's the not truck stop, the travel center chain that grew up in Texas plans is eyeing, I should say, they haven't filed formal permits, a site in Meridian, and like people went wild for that. And cool, that's great. And so to our business model, there's like three kind of main legs to our stool. One is advertising revenue, and that is somewhat predicated on having a good, decent number of traffic, amount of traffic. Sure. And so we run stories that I know will do well. We don't go too far because we don't have to, because the other piece of our model is membership. We don't have a paywall, but people who are members get our stories in their email every day at 4:00, kind of before the general public. So you get a little bit of a jump on what's happening. You feel in the know. It's not a lot before the general public, but we call that a time wall. And then the other piece is we do events. So my co-founder, my wife, Kara, started this event called Peak 43 that honors the 43 fastest growing businesses in the state. And it was October 1st at Boise Center, and we had 500 people show up, and it was fantastic. And then we also do some other things. We're publishing I'm really proud of this, a book called Incredible Idaho Women that's coming out in November. And it's 43 stories of women from all walks of life, all parts of the state, from Sacagawea to Barbara Morgan to Kristen Armstrong to there's Republicans, there's Democrats, there's everything. And it's written on a 4th grade kind of reading level. And then each story written by our team is illustrated by an Idaho artist. And there's 10 Idaho artists who did these amazing portraits of these women. And so getting to do non-traditional things like that is super fun. And so we're not just based on this one thing, which is traffic and driving a Facebook algorithm so that people will click on my site, hit my paywall 10 times and go, oh, fine, I'll give you my money. I call that, there's an old word, made up word for that called anticipatment, meaning you anticipate something and then you're disappointed. We really try not to do that for people. We try and give them what they want, give them facts so that they can go on about their day and know what's happening.
But you want to give them what you want, but still maintaining like, I want to be this, like my platform is this. And you have a very clear sense of that. And you're like, listen, somebody got mad at me people get mad at me all the time. Sure. But one person in particular was like, like you put out these teasers and you're like, because I post stuff on, Instagram or whatever. It's like, well, you can watch the entire episode. They're like, can't you just tell us what happened? I'm like, no, that's the whole point. They're like, you're just wasting our time. I'm like, I don't understand. If you want to have the answer, I'm providing you the answer. You just have to invest, the 5 minutes to watch, whatever it might be. And it's such a funny thing because people are so fickle. It's like they want more, but they don't want to put anything into it. They want the whole answer, the whole understanding, but they don't want to commit any time. And so ultimately, as you kind of pointed out, like you're not going to make everybody happy. So you have to figure out what your niche is and what you want to do, which again, it sounds like you guys just had this great understanding of, no, we're not going to be this other thing. And we're going to have this kind of you're going to have a backup as far as monetization so that you don't have an undue pressure to become this other thing. That's essentially the big question that it's like, how have you done it? It's like, oh, that's it.
It's like, we're going to do, by the time it's all said and done, almost 30 candidate profiles across the Valley: Boise, Meridian, Eagle, Nampa, Meridian, Caldwell, and then McCall, New Meadows, Cascade. I'm missing something.
And when you say a candidate profile,
every
that's
single
for
candidate,
every area.
We talk to every candidate running for every municipal race. Yeah. And we've actually had really good reception. Last year or 2 years ago, we had some people say no, they want to talk to us. And some of them talked to you. And so we watch the podcast. And we were like, well, here's what they said with Matt Todd, right? And some of them just wouldn't talk at all. We had a candidate who has talked to us in the past and wouldn't this time. And it's like, well, we've talked to us in the past, so we're still gonna do the story. And but like everybody, I mean, we've Lisa Sanchez, Jimmy Halliburton, Lynn Bradescu in Boise, like those are all three very different politicians. They all talked to Margaret, and they all had stories about themselves. And we can only do that because those stories don't do a lot of traffic. They don't. Not a ton of people are going to read them. But if you don't know who you're going to vote for in your district and you need information, sure, you can just look at what they've put out, right? I can just go look at Lynn, Jimmy, or Lisa's websites, and I can go, okay, I think I get a sense of them, maybe. Or you can read Margaret's profile, which is going to tell you some of those things, but then is also going to say like, hey, this happened, Lynn Bradescu helped run a recall effort of Lauren McLean. Lisa Sanchez was kicked out of her seat because she moved and then fought at the Supreme Court. Whatever those things are going to be, Jimmy Halliburton voted for a large pay raise for himself, right?
Sure.
Like those aren't going to be on their websites. I guarantee you. Margaret's going to tell you that. And I'm not just focusing on like what you could consider negatives about each of those individuals, but
things they wouldn't voluntarily.
They might not voluntarily say that, and maybe their competitor would do it, or like a third party would do it and make it like scary, like your taxes went up because so and so did so. Okay, well, yeah, maybe, but is that the skew or the truth? And then we just try and tell you like, here are the facts, and so we can do that because we have this membership model, which helps fund our operation beyond just the ads. And then we run stories that like, hey, I know that for instance, we did a story about a mall in Chubbuck in eastern Idaho. We did it in the spring that was going to be torn down, and it did really well. About 3 weeks ago, the mall had been torn down. So we did another story. And I knew that the story would do well because I knew the first time it did well. We don't typically cover Chubbuck. Like we're not Chubbuck Dev. But I knew that people were interested in it, so we gave them an update. Can you call me cynical that I was like, that's just going to do a ton of traffic? Well, yeah, but also people find value in that. So who am I to say like, oh, I shouldn't do that just because it's going to run traffic?
No, but look, did you remember, did you ever see I Heart Huckabees?
I've not
that
seen
like
that.
funny
I've heard
movie.
Of it.
It was pretty funny. But the point is like, you can't, or how about this? Smashing Pumpkins. Mm-hmm. Okay. The lead singer on that.
The band or the things that kids do in their teens.
Both.
Okay. I've seen both.
Okay. There you go. But the artist, right? I heard a long format interview with him where he was talking about, he gained a certain amount of notoriety and, fame and everything. And then he put, as does frequently happen with famous artists, they eventually put out something that doesn't resonate. And instead of listening to people and trying to figure out, I wonder, they're like, no, you just don't get it. Like, It's my genius, right? And he talked about this cycle where you essentially double down, going deeper into like, no, this is so right, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, you need a degree of arrogance that gets you across the starting line where it's, okay, I think I can do something better or different. But then you also have to have reflection. It's like, okay, what if, so when you're I'm like, yeah, we ran the story. I knew it was going to do well. It's like, yeah, man, you're allowed to do that. You just don't want to go all the way into that.
Trying to exploit something. And so I'm going to give you, I think that's interesting.
The people of
Smashing
Chubbuck feel exploited. I feel.
Yeah, maybe. Sure. Yeah. And we didn't say which mall, so that's part of it. And we said an Idaho mall, and people were like, "Which Idaho mall?" Like, I get it. They wanted to know which Idaho mall.
Sure.
And they wanted to know if it was Boise mall, which obviously it wouldn't have been. It would have been different. But anyway.
Can I tell you something really fast?
Yeah.
I had a candidate. I'm not going to say who advocated for socializing the Boise Mall, essentially taking it over and making dormitory style housing out of it for, the peeps that need housing.
Fascinating.
And this was off air. And so obviously I'm not going to say who it was, but I looked at the person like, that is a hot take.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild.
But so you're Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with the musical artist. There's two things that I think are interesting there. So
today's the greatest.
Taylor Swift came out with a new album a couple weeks ago. I'm a Taylor Swift fan. And, we played Lover at our wedding, and Taylor Swift was quoted in my vows to my wife. And but so the album came out, people were critical, and she was on, I don't know, one of the late night shows or something, and was asked about it, and she said, you know what, I appreciate it. People are talking about it, and that means that people who might not have bought the album or streamed it are going to go, oh, I want to hear what that's about. I was like, that's smart. You get that the criticism sometimes is helpful to you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, and I think about this a lot, I have this exact quote in my notes. I won't pull it out here. But I was watching a Netflix documentary about auto-tune of all things. It's a great documentary. And T-Pain was obviously heavily featured in that because T-Pain kind of really pioneered this. And he had this quote and he said it and I was like, man, that is just it. And it was, if you don't like it, I didn't make it for you. But if you do, welcome to the party. And I think about that all the time because
I think I remember that.
Yeah. I was thunderstruck by it because I was like, that is it. Now, so I say those two things, which are intention, right? What Taylor said and what T-Pain said. That'd be an interesting duo in a song. No. We talk about putting our readers first and being reader centric. And in our business, it's like the most important things are our readers and our employees. Like those are the most important things. And so we listen to that feedback. I try and take the approach, and it really is like a learned behavior, which is when you get criticism, especially if it's negative, just try and start with, is this person right? And I've found that when I do that, sometimes even people who are not being nice and are being rude are correct. And so I try to at least hear that point of view out, even if they're mad. And that has helped me because it allows me to try and see through their anger. Somebody today, they were upset, and this is like a small thing, that a story said that a place was on a certain street in Boise, but it wasn't like specific. The story wasn't about the restaurant on that street, but we should have said like more specifically than like it's on XYZ street. I saw the comment on Facebook. They were mad. They were just like angry, and I had to click on things. Okay, sorry, I made you use your thumb, but or your pointer finger. Yeah. But I was like, even though this comment's not very nice, they're right. It should say more specifically where the thing is, and so I went and changed it. Yeah. And so that's, to me, important, is not to get my back arched and be like, oh, you're criticizing me, so you're wrong. Right. Or you're being mean, so I'm not going to listen to you. And I think so much of the challenge in our greater society is that everybody has got their thing, their tribe, their bubble, their whatever, and they don't want to hear it. There can't be anybody else's good point. And I can't deal with that. I just can't. I see good in lots of different things, and that lots of different people who I may or may not typically agree with. I'm like, maybe they got a good point there. Like, and I don't know how we as a country, as a society, lost track of that sort of like idea of like people who I might not typically agree with might have a good point once in a while. I don't think it's good for us. And so
no, there's a kind of, to this point, there's a real problem, I think, with people who anybody who attempts to do podcasts, it's a bad idea, right? And what's worse is I think there's a very clear pattern that people go through, that anybody who has any degree of success, which is exceedingly limited, like those number of people are astronomically low. But almost every time what happens, as I've kind of looked through this, and people building platforms in general, is you build up a platform, right? And you may have had the intention of being, just kind of, in the middle, moderate, whatever. And then as you gain notoriety, people want to know what you think. And you're like, I should tell, because I'm smart. Like, I know what's going on, and I talk to all these people. I should just inform them of what is actually going on. And you fall down this rabbit hole of thinking, I've built a platform, and I, have this audience, and they believe in me, and I'm the smart one here because I know this stuff. And then you, of course, fall into, like, the value, the safety net that I have is that I'm always a decentralized value proposition. It's like, I'm not the one who's smart. Like, I get to talk to people that are intelligent, but there's no burden on me to have like a bright idea, because I don't have bright ideas. I'm just a dude, right? That's something that plays out over and over. But for me, I'm like, no, you really don't know. You just moved here, 4 years ago. And even if you think you can find somebody tomorrow that's going to bring an opinion that you may disagree with, but it's going to open your eyes. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I always have this deeply held level of humility where it's like, look, man, even if you think do you really? Like, are you willing to take a shot? Did you have to confront that within your own organization as you guys grew to really remember, like, hey, look, we may have started out having, just trying to talk about development, but people really want to hear our opinion. Like, and they're saying it's great. Like,
people don't want to hear our opinion. I mean, they might ask us personally, but some of the biggest feedback we get is people are like, I like that I don't load it and see a bunch of opinion, left and right.
Right.
And like, we've done stories that are, we did a story, I did a story, and I don't do as many stories as I used to. That was like a year and a half ago on, so one thing I always say, the one thing that I will take a stand on is that government should be open and should provide records to the public because they are my records, not theirs. You want to take, that's my take. And I will not back down from that. And I think that is an alignment with what I do for a living. And Boise State University has some trouble with public records, and I have been hammer and tong with them in private and on occasionally in public. And we did a story a couple of years ago about some testimony in the Big City Coffee case. Not testimony, I should say. I want to be careful because I want to get this correct. A deposition that happened in the Big City Coffee case.
Okay.
The Big City Coffee case is very complicated. I'm going to get into it here. But it became heavily polarized. If you want to look it up, go Big City Coffee, Boise Dev on Google, you'll get all the details. Heavily polarized and became this kind of left versus right cipher. And Boise State was the big liberal university and Big City Coffee was the crazy conservatives. That was the general narrative. And we did a story that cut against that narrative a little bit. And, people were surprised, and people on the far right were like, this is a really good story, because we just didn't follow all the ducks in the pond, because there was issues where Boise State was doing some stuff that was kind of screwy here. And they, it centered on an individual in the university was renaming records, from like Big City Coffee to B space C space C. And the person being deposed was, well, why was that? I believe it was to hide it from public records. Well, you can't do that. Like, come on, you can't do that. It's patently unethical, at least illegal, probably.
And when you say, I believe that's you, Don, saying that, or that's what was in the deposition?
The deposition was an individual saying, I believe that it was done to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's not me saying that.
Yeah.
Do I think that the person was probably correct? Yeah, I think it was correct.
Sure.
I don't know why else you would rename something
B space C,
right,
unless that was your filing mechanism, and it's like,
it wasn't.
This isn't.
They were trying to hide it from like this guy, or Brian Holmes or whoever. They were just trying to keep it away. And so we did a story on that. We talked extensively about it, and we got into kind of the backstory, and people were mad. And so here it was, a sort of traditional news outlet being like, hey, yeah, I know this all looks like it cuts one way, but hey, look at this thing that happened. And so we just don't look at things through like, oh, is this going to drive a certain agenda? We're just trying to get people to the facts. And, we don't do a lot in the State House, but we've done a little in the State House, and sometimes it cuts one way, sometimes it cuts another. And I just don't look at it as a left-right spectrum. And like, and Margaret and I specifically talk a lot about like the idea of yes. And like, there are so many issues where it's like, you can be like, it's yes or no. And it's like, well, no, it's yes. And also yes. And so it's our job to like give people the like nuance of that so they can figure it out.
Where do you stop with that? Right. Because here's one for you. I had when I had Senator Mike Crapo on most recently, he talked about the big, beautiful bill for like a half an hour straight. Yeah. Dumped information on me. Like I would never have understood or found this. Like it's so hard, right, to parse it out. And there were a lot of things. He was talking about removing taxes for tips and some other things that were beneficial to people, right? So I put
traditionally progressive ideas, right?
There we go. Thank you very much, right? Yeah. So I put this clip out, and this guy who just is incensed, and he was like, I put out a bunch of clips, and every single clip that went out was like, he's all over. It's like calling me a liar, all these things. So eventually, like I take a lot of abuse, but eventually I'm like, look, man, you're just like, so I put him on restriction. I'm like, listen, man, you're just like, you're borderline threatening me for no reason. And he, which almost nobody ever does, he writes me a note and he's like, hey, how come I'm restricted? Because there's apparently like a little red thing that's like, your comment is being reviewed. Yeah. And I was like, oh, he wants to talk. So I end up getting into, I never do this, but I end up getting into this conversation, not like and I'm like, hey man, look, you want me to be like the arbiter of truth. And I'm not. And to your point, I was like, what he's saying in this clip is factually accurate, right? And he's like, but he's a liar. I'm like, okay, but it's a yes and.
Right,
it's like,
right.
yes, he's correct here. And yes, I don't like him. And yes, maybe you have the opinion that he lies or misrepresents things, but it's still a yes and. It's not an either or. And you want it to be this black and white, like shut the door, it's all over.
I like things that I can like prove so that I can see.
Right.
Or is in a public filing, or I know that they said, and I can prove that they said it in an AI world. That's getting dicey. That's where I like facts. I like what's true and what's not. But there's nuance in our world, but that nuance is generally based on facts. The sky is blue. The earth is round. I know I can see ways to prove that. Like, you know, I can look at the sky and I can see photos of the earth. So I can say those are true. Short of that, there's a lot of nuance out there. And so what I like what we cover, what I like what we cover is that, like, I can tell you, like, here's what's in the filing. You don't like it, I don't care. It's not my problem. This is what it says. This is what they say. This is what they're going to do. This is what they say they're going to do. Oh, they didn't do it, but this is what they said. Like, I can get into the facts and pieces of that. The problem with a lot of these sort of, especially social issues, is it's like, it's all vibes, man. You know? Like, you either think something's good or it's bad, and even if you ask people why, sometimes like, I don't know, and they kind of go into it.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, why is immigration good? Why is immigration bad? Why is abortion good? Why is abortion bad? Whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
Why they believe that, not to say that it isn't deeply held. It's just often been deeply held for so long that they haven't had a chance to do I still believe this? Like, my beliefs on things have shifted over time. I think everybody's do to some degree. And it's usually because I get what? More information.
Right.
I let more information into my brain that changes the way I feel about something. And so what we try and do is just give people information. I'm not trying to change their minds. I'm just trying to give it. During the COVID-19, when the pandemic began, as I like to say, when Tom Hanks got COVID, and the whole world went, this is a thing. That's my marker. Like, you know, I built this business on development and growth. At the time, I was solo, and I was like, we're not going to grow anymore. What am I going to do?
In 2020, you were still the only person.
I was solo. Yep. My wife had a corporate job. I was by myself.
How many, if I may, I'm sorry to,
we have 11 people now.
How many articles were you putting out at the time?
So I did 3 a day, 4 days a week. It was a grind. And I ran the business and tried to get it going. It was a grind.
And how long did it take from when you first had the idea to start until you were like, okay, I'm now at a point where I can bring somebody on?
So started it in 2016 as a hobby. And at that point, it was like one straight day. Did a journalism fellowship for a year in California at Stanford, came back, and I was like, I'm going to make this a business. I'm going to try and like go for it. And that was 2018. And so that's the point where it's like, got to get some volume, got to get this really going. And so that's when I was doing the 3 stories a day. And
oh my God, for years,
grinded 18, 19
years.
20. So we hit COVID, and I go, oh, this is going to fall apart because we're not going to grow anymore. And so I'm like, well, okay, what's the gap? And the gap right at that particular moment was there was a gusher of information out there, but nobody was really collating it. It's like Channel 7 was doing their thing, and the Statesman was doing their thing, and Boise State Radio was doing their thing, and the Mountain Express and Ketchum had their stuff, because obviously that the Wood River Valley was a hot spot early on. And like, there's all these things, but like nobody's like taking it, collating it. And so I was like, okay, we're going to do like a live blog, and I'm going to be like, here's what Channel 2's got. Here's what the Statesman's got. Here's what State Radio's got. Here's what, and we're going to get on the news conference with the governor, and I'm going to tell you what the governor said. Like it or not, I don't care. But here's what he said. Hey, we're doing the statewide stay-at-home order, and here's what that means. Here's what he says you can do. Here's what Boise's mayor is saying. Here's what's happening in Meridian. Just like, and that started to push us more beyond just development into the mainstream a little bit. As you know, we did continue to grow, and quite a bit. This area exploded during COVID, and so we kind of shifted back a little bit. But that was interesting to me because we started kind of a pop-up email newsletter for people, and people were like, oh, I really like that. And so we started to work on like, okay, how can we operationalize that and do it beyond just COVID? And so in May of 2021, we launched a newsletter, a daily morning newsletter that we now call Boise Dev AM. and it's been wildly successful and has 40,000 subscribers who read it. It's the most consumed piece of media in our market now. There are other news outlets that are bigger, but it's the single most consumed product. And the approach we take there is like, here's what's happening. Here are the facts. You need to know what's happening if you want in your community, and here's what it is. And it's like tactical things like, like, hey, ACHD is going to tear up this road and they're giving you a feedback opportunity. Here's that link. Here are some news articles we link out to other news outlets. So it's like, here's what you can get from, we do 4 a day, and here's what you got. And, we're careful in the selection of those, but like, here's fact-based things from other news outlets. And so we've been really successful with that. And it's that same ethos of like, here is what's going on. You decide to do with it what you will. We're not going to tell you our opinion, what we think. It's up to you to figure out what to do with the information. It's really just like back to basics journalism. It's not complicated.
I know, but this is the thing. Like, people moved away from that. Like the articulation that legacy media styles are dying and there's no place for them. And it's like, we're now emerging into like the new media.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think that's true. I think it takes somebody with vision and like integrity and grit to actually bring back that thing.
I think what's happened is largely the we, and I mean like people who go publish news, have been disintermediated. So it used to be, not even that long ago, like 15 years ago, there were like 5 news outlets in this market, a little more than that, but that was kind of it. And they went out, they found out information, they told their audience, and they monetized that. Well, now what's happened is they still go out and find out the information, and then super hyper-partisan people on TikTok read the story from whoever it is, or Instagram, and then they like do their own take on it. And they might not even say like, hey, I read this on Boise Dev, KTVB, Idaho State,
right.
whatever. They just go like, there's a tower being built and it's crazy, and like,
and then they like flash for a half second.
If they do
picture
that,
of they're like, well, you got to layer in additional media, keep the eyes tracking, Don.
And they make this hot looking video, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to do a little more of that, but like, great looking video, works well on the social feed. I paid a person to go and find that out. I pay a person who watches the public records that does this. We pay above the market salaries. Like we pay people well to do good work. And so I can't stop the TikToker from going and taking Sydney Kid's story about Costco and making a video. I can't. There's nothing I can do about it. I can scream and yell, and I do internally in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. But I can't stop that. What I have to do is I have to figure out how to serve audiences in ways that work. And so for us, because the social platforms have disintermediated us. So like if you look at the Costco example, right?
Yeah.
Sydney Kid writes a story about a new Costco in South Meridian. Podcaster, not a podcaster, a TikToker, an Instagrammer, sees it, makes their own video, doesn't credit her. They didn't get it independently, I guarantee you, because I know where we got it and nobody else could get it. Like we had a good source and this person couldn't do it.
Sure.
So Sydney does it. The TikToker does their own version, and then they have to work the algorithm of TikTok to get to the reader. So all of a sudden there's like 2 new people between us who found the information and the audience. And we don't monetize Facebook or TikTok, and we don't monetize the person who did it. And so all of a sudden we've been disconnected. So for us, what we've tried to do is like cut all that out. We go straight into people's inboxes. There's, for now, no real algorithm much that keeps us away. And we continue to have that one-to-one audience. That's a pretty sort of classical media trick. That's how newspapers and television used to be. They produce news, they put it on television, people watch it on TV. What we do is we produce news, we put it in an email, and they read it in their email. And so that's helped us a lot because I don't have to convince Zuckerberg's algorithm that what I'm doing is interesting. I don't. I can just put it in the email, and people either open it every day or they don't. And they do. They open it at a high rate, and it's great. It works really well, and it's ad supported and works. But we don't know how that changes or shifts in another 3 or 4 years. It's changing so fast. And what AI means, all of our content is written by humans. There are at least 3 news outlets in this market today who are putting AI written content in front of their readers. 2 of them disclose it. 1 of them does not. And I think humans want to read content written by humans. That's my bet. We're going to double down on it, and hopefully it works.
Man, that's so
That was a long answer.
No, listen, I don't have a background in media. I don't have a background in journalism. And I have found myself in this position in this industry where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I tell anybody who will listen
and sometimes that's a good thing.
Like,
right?
Well, apparently it's working a little bit.
Because you don't have, I had to unlearn bad behaviors. And the traditional media thing, and this is getting a little better, but has long been, I am the journalist. I know what's good. I'm going to not, or what you need to know, I'm going to tell you.
Right.
And I tried to flip that over and be like, hold on. So I'm going to tell you a story. So this is like 2018, and I had done a story on a Wendy's on the bench closing on Orchard Street. The hamburger restaurant closed.
Okay.
No big deal.
Well, I do like the Frosties.
Me too.
The French fry, dip the French fry in the chocolate.
Yeah, that's not for me, but I see the appeal. So the Wendy's closes. They've been there forever. This is by where I lived when I was a kid. So I just try on. And I saw on Twitter, still called that at the time, a legacy journalist who was snarky, didn't mention me, but said, Don's just going to tell you about when the Wendy's closes. And I remember being like hurt by that. Like, oh my God, my peer doesn't respect what I do. I was like,
very, very sad night for
me. And then I was like, wait a second, that was the best performing story I did last month. And it was like that, not to quote Oprah, but it was an aha moment for me, because I was like, oh, guess what? You're wrong, I'm right. You don't get it, and I do. You are looking down your nose at the audience, and I'm like, wait a second, they want to know that the Wendy's closed. They care. They're interested in that. And so for me, it was like, it completely changed how I felt. And it doesn't mean that, hey, I want to have the respect to my peers. I think in the large part, we do. Not every day, but I don't respect what they do every day either. On the whole, I think they all try. And so I looked at it and went, well, man, this guy doesn't think that is good journalism, but the audience was interested in it. So maybe I should be listening to the audience and not the journalist at another news outlet. And that was like revolutionary for me. And we've hired people who get that. And we have a good group of people who understand, like, hey, we're going to go out and do things that the audience wants. And then we're also going to do things that maybe the audience isn't super into, but are important. So that's covering City Hall. And we cover all the city halls in our area pretty closely. And nobody else really does that on a systemic basis anymore. We're going to write about candidate profiles that maybe don't get a ton of reads, but are important. So what we do is we call this the high-low strategy. So the high thing is we take the high road and tell you about the municipal things. We write about homelessness. We write about these things that are really important. And the low is I tell you when the Wendy's closes. What we don't do is really the middle. I don't tell you about crime, car crashes. We don't get into that. All that middle stuff that you might see in a typical newscast. Somebody else can do that.
Man, I had a similar experience recently. Somebody was really, really mad that, I essentially just exist the way I do. And this individual's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy $14,000. I don't know how I got $14,000 worth of equipment. And I'm just going to do, whatever with Matt. And what I thought was humorous, I'm like, what? Like, what is it? Like, first off, this is like $100 microphone. Like, it's like you're going to have a lot of money left over once you're done. Yeah. And then I kind of to your point, I'm like, oh, wait, what he's really saying is the production quality is really high and he thinks it costs a lot of money. Now he's totally missing the mark of like, you could have the best equipment in the world. It doesn't mean it works. Like there are plenty of people that have like film crews.
You have an iPad here. I mean, this isn't complicated.
That's my backup mic, bro.
Couple thousand dollars worth of stuff here.
Yeah, yeah. Get a little Canon G50, get them for $1,100 on Amazon, and a couple mics. Like,
I mean, for us, the trick of it is, and people don't know this, one of the biggest costs for a traditional television station is electricity, because they have a transmitter on Bogus Basin that beams stuff. One of the highest costs for newspapers is they print stuff on paper and put it on trucks and ship it around. The Statesman is printed, I believe, still in Twin Falls. It might be further. And then you'll mail it out via U.S. mail. So you got to pay for postage. And so there's a lot of expense there. My overhead, we have now a lot of overhead, but it's all people. Like that's where we have a little bit of office rent, some software expense, and that's like it. It's all humans, and so that's allowed us to we pay our journalists better than the market, the market average, and it's allowed us maybe to have a little bit more people than we would otherwise have. And because I'm not a corporation that's trying to meet either a hedge fund's goal or a Wall Street demand for sequential profits every quarter, it's just making sure that my wife and kid and I can eat and have an okay life. Our margin's a lot lower. And so we invest more of what we make back into the product. And that allows us to do a little more than we might otherwise if I was looking for a 20 or 30% profit margin on top of everything.
Yeah, I very frequently have conversations with people where I am enthralled in the conversation. I find it super valuable, really incredible. But I know for whatever reason, I'm like, whatever degree it's going to resonate with the audience or not. But it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, but I'm really happy that this person was heard. I'm really happy that this is out there. It's important to me. It may not be the thing that's, leading, but it's really important that it exists.
You have other things in your life, in your world that pay your basic needs. I'm sure this helps, but and so that frees you to some degree. For us, because we have a membership model and some other things, it frees me a little bit. And for me, I'll tell you another story. In 2005, I'd started at 18 years old in this market. Worked 6 years. I thought I wanted to be in news since I was 6 years old. And it relates to a plane crash between Boise and Denver. And that's another side story. But like from the time I was little, I was like, I want to be a broadcast journalist, very specific. I want to be a TV reporter. And so I turned 18 and got a job, full-time job at Channel 7 in the newsroom. And then people were like, this kid's got a desk. Like, what's going on here? And I was the first web producer there. And did that, started to produce newscasts and loved it. Worked super hard, super fun. Had an opportunity to move to a channel in Seattle called Northwest Cable News. It doesn't exist anymore. It was a 24-hour regional cable network. I was like, okay, I'll move to Seattle. Hated it. Didn't like the town. And I'm not talking about like people like, oh, Seattle, it's the crazy. I'm not talking about Seattle of 2025.
Sure.
Seattle of 2005. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
Beautiful, lovely town at the time. But
yeah, Portland and Seattle were lit in 2005.
Absolutely. It was a poppin' place.
I actually happened to, randomly, I went to Oregon with a buddy of mine, and he's like, there's this, because it was like the craft brew mecca, right? Yep. And he's like, there's this brew spot downtown that has 200 craft brews on.
Or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, they had 200 beers on tap, and it was like these long rows of taps. I'm like, this is so wild. And everybody's like, dude, Portland is the place to be. So 2005, like the West Coast was different.
Yeah, it was different. Yeah. So I lived there, and it's beautiful, and there's trees everywhere, and there's stuff, and it was different than here. But I hated it. Yeah. It wasn't for me. It was hard to make friends, and like I would just fly home to Boise on the weekends and be with my family. And I also didn't like the job. I'm like, well, I'm doing the same thing. I was producing newscasts in Boise and producing newscasts in Seattle. I was like, I hate this. I was like, why do I hate this? And I got an opportunity to come back to Boise. Fortunately, back to KTVB, and took it. I was only in Seattle 10 months. And it wasn't until later that I was like, oh, I'm not actually super into news or journalism. I'm into Boise. I'm into this place. I'm into Idaho. I'm into McCall and Sun Valley and Payette. And I'm into these, like, I love this place. And so for me, it taught me that's what, and I hate to say like calling because it sounds like a bigger thing, but it's like, it's what I can produce, put my time and talent towards that will make this place incrementally better. I can't, there's other things that I could do, right? I guess, but the thing that I know the best, that I understand the best is like giving people facts about this place because I love it. And so it's not about like journalism for me, and that's the end, the means to the end, I should say. And, I care about doing things the right way. And I'm not saying I don't like journalism. I'm just saying it's not the primary thing. The primary thing is like, how do I provide good information to the Treasure Valley and to the greater McCall area? Because we have a separate news site there in ways that people want and can access and like. It's that simple.
Do you get worried about this area?
Oh yeah, I'm a worrier. It's weird because like I grew up here, was born here. And my dad was born here and his dad was born here. And so like we get pretty deep roots. And yeah, change is weird. And change is weird in all directions. So, you can stress about like, the zoning code's going to change things, or there's people moving here with political ideas I don't agree with, or there's people moving away, or it's easy to stress. It's easy to stress about anything, man. You can say, if you're a Republican and Biden was president, you can stress about that. If you're a Democrat and Trump's president, you can stress about that. It's stressful. Our world is stressful. AI could, I like to say, shut us off. I don't know. And all I can do is focus on like one foot in front of the other and try not to get wound about those things because I can't control them. I really can't. So when you ask me about worry, yeah, do I try and let it drive me? I really don't. I try to just say, here's what I can control. I can give the people who I hire a good place to work, treat them well, give them fulfilling opportunities. I can control what we put out every day to some degree. I mean, it's collaborative. The people I work with have a say, but I can at least control approach and make sure we're doing things the right way and listening. I can work to adapt to things like AI or to changes on platforms or whatever it is and try to figure out how to work that. And I can be a good husband. And I have a kid who's 2 years and 2 months old. I can be a good father. And those are things I can control. Beyond that, I can't. I don't have a say. There's nothing I can do. I'm not going to change things. So if I don't like something, oh well. And that doesn't mean that doesn't change, right? Who knows where the country goes and where we get animated and, where we all have to say, okay, maybe this is my red line, but I've just got to control what I can control. I think most people should focus there, not to be pious, but like if we all just focus on what we control, we'd be better off.
Man, I deeply appreciate that. Tend to the portion of the garden you can reach.
Exactly.
And I think the distraction of all of the, it's amazing. There's a Facebook group. It's not like, many of them, but it's called Actual Idaho Politics. And I don't spend time consuming Facebook content.
Yeah.
I just, drop off episodes that are relevant to Idaho politics. And I was really excited when I initially found it. I'm like, oh, this perfectly fits, a lot of the shows, because I don't just do politics, but it was like, yeah, this would be a perfect home for this. But it's like every single post is about, national stuff that we can't do anything about. And it's like, guys, what do you, and again, no problem. If people want to consume their time or spend their time doing that, that's fine. But it cracks me up because even in the self-declaration that it's like, I am here for actually what's going on in Idaho. So let's all talk about RFK and like Trump. I'm like, this is not helping.
It's not. And that nationalization of our local discourse is like kind of crazy. And that's, I think, maybe one of the things that like is the reason we are what we are is like, I don't care about the nationalization of it. I don't want to make it about Trump, Biden, Hillary, Romney. I'm using very old dated
Romney.
But like, it's not about that.
Yeah, right.
Man, if they're going to build a tower at 11th and Front, that doesn't have a thing to do with what's happening in the White House. Maybe steel tariffs, I guess. I mean, you could always tie it, but like, it doesn't have anything to do with it. It has to do with like, hey, is it a good thing to build a 40-story tower? And have we elected people that, the right people to make that decision? That's what it's about. It doesn't have to do anything. And, people like to demonize, and they like to demonize, Boise's mayor, Meridian's mayor, or Star's mayor, or Caldwell's mayor, or any of them. They like to, and it blows my mind the things that people will say sometimes, especially these municipal politicians, that I'm just like, that's not actually right. Like, I cover these people. That's not right. You're wrong. You've been animated by something and you think that they are something based on generally low information and vibes, and maybe just overall demonization. I think I've said vibes on this podcast twice. So.
I think your disdain, the stank in your voice when you say vibes.
Well, right. I mean, we all operate on vibes to a certain level.
Yeah, right.
My advantage is because of what I do, I keep my vibes to myself. And so it protects me a little bit. I don't want you to
low
know,
information.
I don't want you to know my vibes.
Vibes.
Right? But that's what it is. You go on Facebook, on our comment section and everybody's comment section. It's like, this is bad because of, and it's like, well, this has nothing to do with that. Like, it's not what this is actually about. And there are issues that pop up locally. You can talk about, the We Are Welcome poster here in West Ada, or the pride flag in Boise, or, there are things that pop up that suddenly those local things really do intersect with the national conversation, and matter. I mean, we've done more stories about the flagpole at the city of Boise than I would ever care to admit. But trying to help people understand here's what's going on, and here's what Raul says, and here's what Lauren says, not to use I should say, Attorney General Labrador and
sure,
Mayor McLean, right?
Yeah.
Here's what they say, and here's what they're doing, and here's what, here's what Sheriff Clifford says, and here's what is happening. And instead of being feeding into sort of a political discussion, is it inherently political? Sure. But how do you have a political discussion if you don't know what the facts are and what people are saying?
Yeah, I had Sheriff Clifford came on very kindly, and we were talking at least in part about the flag issue. Yep. And he was like, look, because obviously the number of social media clips out there of people going up to, police officers like, hey, I know somebody breaking the law right now. Will you come with me? And they're like, yeah, what's going on? They're like, there's a flag. And they're like, oh God. And he was like, okay, look, who do I even arrest? And what do I charge them for?
Oh,
and there's no penalty. He's like, do I arrest the janitor who put it up there? Bill? Bill's a nice guy. He's worked here for 15 years.
Wanted the mayor arrested and the flag taken down. And I'm like, man, that flag was up there for kind of a long time. And the last mayor flew it. It didn't fly all 12 months of the year, but the last mayor flew it every June for 6 years before Lauren McLean became mayor. And nobody cared. And now everybody cares. I'm like, I don't get it. But I don't get the controversy. I get why people are animated. What I understand is that people have to get the information about it so they can decide, there's going to be more on this in the legislature in January for sure. Right. And, we'll follow that too. And whatever happens. It's not my job to just steer the discussion. It's my job to tell people what's happening so they can steer their own discussions.
I will say, it does crack me up that Boise lives rent-free in most cities' heads.
Yeah.
Whatever happens.
Hey, man.
It's like, when's the last time you got all hot and bothered about something that happened in Caldwell?
That dynamic goes the other way. I mean, some of those national issues live rent-free in city of Boise's head too.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's the thing, is everybody is just can we just focus on our knitting here? I just want low taxes, easy traffic, nice restaurants to go to.
Yeah.
The thing that we all do. And I'll pay taxes if you tell me what it's needed for. It's fine. I'm an American. I got to pay taxes. I get it. But we spent a lot of time writing about actual local tax policy. Here's what the city of Boise is going to do with its taxes.
Right.
Here's what Meridian's doing. Here's what Star's doing.
I had Chief Tominski on this morning at 7 a.m. He's trying to pass the fire levy, obviously. And it's so even when you say I'll pay taxes, just explain to me what they're for and explain why we need them. No problem. It's you would be in the minority in Star, sir. Let me tell you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's okay. And those people have a right, but that comes from the people in Star are okay with paying taxes for what they identify as
Star
important.
should absolutely get whatever Star wants.
If the people of Star are yeah, man, we need more police officers out here, tax me more, great. Right. Or if not, great. If Mayor Chadwick says that, hey, we've got more needs for fire, great thing is he gets to go to the voters in two ways. One, he can run a bond or levy, or two, he can say, I'm going to raise property taxes the maximum amount. I'm going to take foregone, and then he's going to be on a ballot in no more than 3 years and 364 days.
To be clear, Mayor Chadwick can't fund the fire district.
Okay, fair. That's a different.
He could advocate.
The Boise example would be that, but
I got you. And
it's different.
Yeah, I know. I just want
thank
to
you for
point
that.
that out.
That's a good clarification.
Yeah, but again,
he can advocate.
Yeah, 1,000%.
He can say, I really think we all need this, right?
Yeah, boom.
And then the voters can be yeah, I don't agree with you. You're out. Or yeah, you're right. I vote for you. And here's the thing: these municipal politicians almost universally get reelected. And that includes the people that are not well liked. They're reading the room. They typically know their voters. They have polling. And you see this at the state level too with Governor Little or Raul Labrador or whoever it is. They're trying to, they want to keep their job. They're kind of trying to figure out where are my voters? And unlike some of the elections where things can be, the talk about the gerrymandering and we're going to pick our voters instead of the voters picking us. It's really hard to do that in a statewide race. You can't gerrymander Idaho.
Like,
it's one
take
state.
part of Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, well, that may happen, but that's, to be clear, super unlikely. You got to get a lot of different bodies to all agree on that. But if you're going to get both houses of the Oregon legislature and both houses of the Idaho legislature to agree on anything, I'm not sure it's that. And then the both houses of Congress. So anyway, but like if you're Brad Little or you're Raul Labrador, you're looking at the state of Idaho and going, okay, well, what is it that's going to get me the most votes so I can do this another 4 years? And if you're Lauren McLean, you're looking at the city of Boise and saying, what is it that I can do that's going to give me the most votes for the next 4 years? And I'm not saying that they're craven about it. And they're just, they have to understand what the voters really want, not what people say on Facebook.
Man, this is a lot.
This is a lot.
Listen, I know it's a working day for you.
It is.
I really appreciate you coming in. I would love to have you on again. I just don't want to take any more of your time today. Is there anything
People aren't listening to this anymore. It's been too long.
God.
We've prattled on for a long time.
That's not true at all. Is there anything you want to hit at the end here?
No, just that book is going to be really cool. The Incredible Idaho Women book.
Yes.
Hardcover. It's our second book. We did a book on Boise a couple years ago that was really popular, and I'm really proud of the effort that's into this book, and it's fun. They're fun stories.
When does it come out?
November 1st. It's on pre-sale now.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I'd love to, once it comes out for the general populace, I'd love to have you back on and chat about some of your favorite stories.
Great.
That'd be great. Thanks.
My wife. It's my wife's book. She can come on.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, sir.